USA Warrior Stories is a not-for-profit organization designed to record, archive, and share videos of veteran stories, to help veterans make a connection with one another and to help us all better understand their sacrifices for our freedoms.
My name is Detrel Howell. I was born in the Bronx, New York. I spent the first 9 years of my life in Throgs Neck, the Bronx. And then my father was murdered in our apartment. And my mother moved myself, my brother, and my sister to Hempstead, Long Island.
And we can't ignore the fact that you said that your father was murdered.
Yes.
That must have been just traumatic for your whole family.
Yes, it was.
What were those circumstances, if you can talk about it?
Honestly, I still don't know. It still remains a mystery. Left us as a mystery, but we know that he was targeted, he was brutally assaulted, and he died on the bedroom floor in our apartment in the Bronx. Graduated from Uniondale High School in 1986. Went on from there to Buffalo State College. Enlisted while at Buffalo State College. Joined the Army at the age of 17. My mother was very upset with me. And stayed at Buff State for 2 years. I was assaulted by the police in Buffalo, and my mother ordered me to come home. My boyfriend at the time and I were walking across Main Street. They have like a tram trolley that goes across Main Street, and there had been a jewelry robbery at a store. And the police kind of rolled up on us, jumped out of the car and asked, where's the ring? And started to ruffle through his things, my things. And he got clocked in the eye with some sort of metal object. And immediately his eye ballooned. I was assaulted. I was hit in the ribs, in the stomach. I had some contusions. But after that, my mother came up the very next day, made me pack up, and back to Hempstead I went.
As a young me, Fort Jackson.
What drew you to the Army?
My father loved airplanes, and he wanted to join the Air Force. He used to put model airplanes together and hang them from string all throughout the living room. So we had airplanes everywhere. But unfortunately, he suffered with a heart ailment, so he was not able to enlist. But as an honor to him, I wanted to join the military, but I was not an Air Force girl. I like being out in the wilderness. I love camping, I love fishing. I like to be outside, so I joined the Army.
What was it like for you when you first joined the Army?
I was scared. I was terrified, but I also found it very exciting because it forced me to challenge myself physically, emotionally, and definitely mentally. To have a drill sergeant yelling at 4 o'clock in the morning, banging a metal garbage can, get up, you wingworms, get up. And we had to rise to the challenge. Fort Jackson was a lot. It was a lot. We were there in the middle of the summer. We did PT on a hill that they called Ant Hill at the time, and there were red ants. And the red ants would climb up our PT shorts and they bite. And our drill sergeant refused to allow us to swat them away. They tore us up. There were times when you would go in the shower at night and you would see these ants, washing off of you. but this is what we had to endure. But I met some of the most fantastic women. I'm actually in touch with one, still to this day. She's my son's godmother. And I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, even though it was hell. I continued to go to school. I made my drills. I was drilling up in Tonawanda, New York, which is upstate. Made some nice friends there. But then I came home and I was attached to the 800th Military Police Brigade headquarters. So it came as a tremendous surprise when we were told that we had been activated. Our unit was activated and we were going to be deployed.
What year was this?
This was 1990. So we spent about 3 months in Fort Meade, Maryland, training, learning Arabic, learning about the culture, because there was talk of us being deployed to Saudi Arabia. And for some time, we didn't think that it would actually happen. But they prepared us. We received immunizations, were forced to take pills that, no one ever explained what they were. And we got ready, and off we went. Off we went. It was a very uncomfortable 23-hour flight.
It's not first class. Just
Not at all, not at all. We were on a metal bench that had mesh seating, and we were all, it was about 30 of us, and we were on this plane, like leaning on each other as trying to be pillows and stay warm. And you had military trucks on board as well, our equipment. They gave you these little styrofoam earplugs, which did nothing. And it was freezing. It was freezing. We landed Christmas Eve, 1990. So imagine spending Christmas in the desert when you're used to snow and cold and ice. No, we were in the desert where it was 120 degrees and you would see the actual rays from the sun coming off of the sidewalk. We were in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia. My home became the Khobar Towers.
We're going now to Saudi Arabia and Charles Jaco. Charles, are you still hearing me? Charles
Yes,
Jaco is just
the air raid sirens are just now going off here near these U.S. bases in Saudi Arabia. We've sent the entire camera crews inside right now. We're all preparing to put on our gas masks, as we've been told. There are sounds of planes overhead. We don't know whose planes there are.
We were under constant Scud warnings. And the Scud warnings for us was someone driving around on a, how would I explain it? Like a little Jeep with an open top. And there was like a loudspeaker, and the person would yell out, "Scud warning, Scud warning." You would hear the air raid siren going off in the background. And you had just a matter of seconds to put on your gas mask and your mop gear, which was everything that we were taught that would prevent any sort of gas attack. The most frightening time in my life, because those warnings were around the clock. So you could finally be in a dead sleep, and there's that horn. You up, you gotta get dressed, gotta, because this is life and death. It's something that I'll never forget. I actually brought that back home with me, because coming back to Long Island and hearing the fire horns, from the firehouses, that it to this day is still a trigger. Loud noises. I never knew that I came home with PTSD. It took 25 years for a diagnosis to actually, be stamped to let me know that I was traumatized. Because we were the headquarters company, our responsibility was to monitor the prisoner of war camps. So by the time the skirmish ended, Saddam's troops were surrendering because he had abandoned them out in the desert. They had lice. He had stopped feeding them.
This is me in Kuwait. This is on the highway of death. This is where the residents were trying to escape from the bombing and things like that. So you saw a lot of burned out cars. You would see shoes that people left behind, clothing. It was heartbreaking. But I wanted to have the memory captured, and I climbed up those rocks and I posed for a picture. My job was to maintain the rolls, maintain the attendance and the status of each of the prisoner of war camps. So we all oversaw all of the prisoner of war camps in the desert, and there was a daily census that had to be maintained. And as the assistant unit clerk, I had to help to keep those rolls. As we were packing to leave, we were in like a human chain, passing equipment from one another to pack up the freight crates that you see on the trains pulling, because all of our equipment had to come back to the States. And while we were doing that, I felt a pop in my left knee. And I just my body buckled. I was glad that there was a hefty young man next to me, because he was able to hold me up, and they actually carried me back to the barracks. I didn't know at the time, but I had torn my meniscus. 2 months later, I was on an operating table because I had damaged my knee. And this is something that has, hindered me throughout life, because the damage to the left knee developed into damage in the right knee, developed into the hips, the back, the neck, the shoulder, so it's been a journey. And of course, my claims were initially denied, to the point that I finally just gave up and said, forget it. And then I met someone and they said, you will not forget it, because you gave your service to this country. You were injured while you were on active duty. Being denied, treatment and care and compassion from the times that I attempted to receive assistance through the VA made me very bitter. Very bitter. I did not want to talk about my time in service with pride, because I was angry. I was extremely angry that my life was on the line. I got injured, and there was no help for me. I also wanted to join a support group, to kind of understand how to re-engage and reintegrate in society. And there were no support groups for women. I isolated, have dealt with depression all of these years, the PTSD. It's become a way of life, sadly. I work for the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision for New York State, and they wanted to acknowledge employees who had served, and they asked me to tell my story. And unbeknownst to me, there was a gentleman in the audience who was a high-ranking member of the New York State Department of Veteran Services. And I talked about how I had been injured, how I had been denied. My claim had been denied at least 4 times. And he approached me afterwards and he said, I'm going to help you. He put me in contact with a wonderful gentleman at the St. Albans VA named Joaquin. Joaquin spent so much time with me, you know, going through everything, going through all the paperwork that had been previously submitted. And he said, this was done improperly. This should not have been there, but we're going to take care of you. I just made it to 100% permanently disabled. Not only for the knee, but for the PTSD and for the other Desert Storm related illnesses and conditions that
we're still learning about.
Yes.
You know, it's ongoing. So,
right.
Yeah.
I ultimately had a hysterectomy, which I learned, you know, was attributed to Desert Storm. I have total hair loss. I have alopecia, which is another symptom that's related to Gulf War illness. And like you said, we're still learning. I did not want to become a part of the VFW or the American Legion. I didn't feel any of that would be pertinent to me. But I have to say that I am now a Gold Legacy Lifetime member of the VFW. I'm a proud member of Post 1790 in Valley Stream, New York. I am also a lifetime member of the National Association of Black Military Women. And our affiliation is also to the women from the 6888. And I finally feel like I'm a part of a family, part of a community, and I'm able to give back to the community. Because I could not find support when I came home, while I was working on my Master of Divinity, I was in a class where the professor said, I need everyone in here to identify their ministry. And I didn't have a ministry. I decided to go to seminary because I knew that God had a calling on my life. I didn't have a title, I didn't have a designation, nothing. So I was clueless, and I told the professor, you know, I don't have a ministry. He said, what is it that you'd like to do? Find somebody who is working, doing something that you think you might like to do, and have a conversation. I had a conversation with a young lady from the Montrose VA who was working with veterans. I had met her through my job. She was someone who was giving back to those who were coming home from prison who had served. And her name was Valerie Johnson. And Valerie and I talked for 2 hours this one day. And I just listened to her. And I listened to her talk about what a joy, what a fulfilling spirit it had given her just to be able to give back to those who served. And it was like that. I said, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I launched a campaign and eventually formed a nonprofit called United in Sisterhood, which is geared to provide support to female veterans. Started with 5 women. As of today, I have 405 across the United States. I long, once I retire, to be able to fully commit myself to United in Sisterhood and working with female veterans. Right now, I'm in a partnership with another female veteran. Her name is April Price, and she is the founder of In the Coach Zone. So United in Sisterhood and In the Coach Zone launched a campaign called Journey to Wellness 2026. And what we are doing is focusing on mind, body, soul, and building sisterhood. And my hope is at the end of this campaign, I'll be able to have enough to reach out to organizations or companies that may want to partner and offer us some exercise equipment, some nutritional bars, some nutritional information, anything. The things that I'm going to share, it took time for me to want to be willing to be acknowledged and honored, and the honors have just continued, and it's amazing. I was honored by the Queens District Attorney, Melinda Katz, back in 2020. She allowed me to be featured as one of the veterans for her Veterans Day celebration. I'm a lifetime member of the National Association of Black Military Women, the New York Chapter. I am the Public Relations Officer, and this is a box that they presented us with that we can store our challenge coins in.
That's great.
I was a part of an organization called WOVEN, the Women Veterans Network, and I started off as just a member who had gone through the workshops. I then became a peer leader and a national trainer. And these are some of the tokens that they presented us with as a WOVEN national trainer, and to show that we were WOVEN strong. And WOVEN was established in 2017. And it's a fabulous, fabulous opportunity for women to come together, grow together, and understand that our experiences are some that others have experienced as well. We're not alone in this journey. In 2018, I was the veteran of the game for the New York Mets, which was my childhood favorite baseball team. And they also gave me a challenge coin, and they allowed me to have one of the actual balls that were played during that game. Unfortunately, the Mets lost to the Nationals, but Citi Field is incredible. And then in 2015, Senator Leroy Comrie and his Veterans Advisory Board selected me to the acknowledgement of being entered into the Veterans Hall of Fame. So they presented me with a flag that has my name, and I felt like maybe I really am something. Maybe I really am somebody. Just absolutely great. And then to share this experience with my boyfriend, my sister, my niece. My son wasn't able to attend, but these are, some of my veteran sisters, and that's Senator Comrie. Remember to honor yourself. You gave more than just yourself. You gave this country your best. You deserve the honor, you deserve the acknowledgement, and if you are a female veteran and you would like to become a part of United in Sisterhood, you can reach us at unitedinsisterhood.org. And we readily embrace our women. We give back. We've had sisters who've been hospitalized. We send them clothing. We do whatever we can to make women feel acknowledged, because we deserve it.